Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. All past shows are podcasts. You can download them at artistfirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments by email, dj@artistfirst.com. Now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, EveryMan, and we will remain calm.
We'll try to.
Try to, despite the topic for tonight, Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, appropriately, madness. In one form.
Yes.
And being a subject matter expert on madness. Margaret is the only reason I am grounded, even as much as I am. The only reason. You have no idea what kind of behind the scenes signals she gives me. So I try to hold it all together because I do have just a little tiny wild hair of madcapness in my nature.
Imagine that.
And I come by it honestly, though. And so, but tonight is not poetry night, but we are going to reference a quote from one of our favorite poets, Khalil Gibran, and we'll be posting up on the website. And Gibran, for those of you who've been listening for any length of time, was a Lebanese poet who lived in the latter. Well, I guess he was born in the first half of the 20th century and then lived into the latter half of the 20th century. Died rather young, but he is a consummate poet and author, and I would recommend highly, looking him up and either listening to or reading his poems because they're beautiful. And then, of course, he has, as most poets do, he's also got a great take on life and on people. And so this quote on madness originates with him. Do you want to read the quote, and I'll take a break here and clear my throat?
Okay. All right. I have found both freedom and safety in my madness. The freedom of loneliness and the safety from being understood. For those who understand us enslave something in us. Khalil Gibran.
Really an amazing take on it, and so incredibly. It's a complex series of thoughts that he's kind of, as most poets are able to do, put in just a couple of sentences. You twigged on the fact when we were talking about this earlier. Of this idea of those who understand us somehow control or exert control over us, and I think that's a beautiful. You could expound upon that, and I think we should jump off right there.
Just dive right in.
Yeah,
all right.
It's just in a madcap way. We abandon all sanity and jump right in.
The phrase, for those who understand us, enslave something in us. And you think about that for a moment. Because the word enslave literally means you are controlled so absolutely that you don't even own yourself. And to understand that you can be controlled that way, whether you realize it or not.
Yes. And I think the interesting thing is Khalil credits his madness as a shield, in essence.
Well, it's not understood by the outside world, And if they don't understand it, they can't figure a way to manipulate it.
Mm.
So they look at him and say, all right, there's a viewpoint here I don't understand. I don't see what you're seeing.
Mm.
And for the most part, when someone has been wanting to manipulate or play a power game, that's not a safe space for them, because they realize that the other person is looking at things in a way that they don't understand. It's outside their box.
Unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. They will do things that I can't anticipate or influence.
Right. And as a wild card, it tends to. Let's step back for a second. Those who wish to control have a certain viewpoint that they're in essence trying to. The word I want to say is assuage, but it's not quite right. But basically, what they're trying to cure in themselves is a certain degree of fear, because control is a response that you give when you are afraid of the situation. You want to control it. You want to either learn about it or manipulate it or lock it down, or because you feel threatened by that which you do not either understand or which you can't control, or both. So Gibran, in his, he says, madness, but in his inability to be understood by those who wished to control him, he represents a threat, as you said. His actions can't be anticipated. He could do it literally. When you see someone like, he could do anything, he could turn around and just astound me, or rebel, or in some way do things which I can't control, and I don't like that.
Well, it's someone who's playing checkers, and suddenly the board changes to chess.
Yes.
And they don't like that because they don't understand what has just happened.
It's interesting you say checkers, because checkers is a one-dimensional game, and the dimensions that you don't control, you ignore. You just say, well, they don't count, they don't matter. But I think, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the pieces that you have on the board only move a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then with chess, suddenly there's a whole range of movement that wasn't there before.
Mm.
But it's the same basic board.
Exactly. And in some ways, the wild card takes the world as you think you know it and turns it on its head. So Gibran's sentiment here is two-edged, because he's talking about himself. I have found both freedom and safety. So he's getting this benefit, but he's also talking about the other, in that the other rejects him, or finds him unpalatable because it can't understand him, and therefore he's either marginalized, or he's put into an outer box. This is not something that we accept, not something that's within the worldview of our checkerboard.
Mm-hmm.
This is a piece we can't control. This is a wild checker. When your checker suddenly grows ahead and looks like a knight, you have a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a dimensional perception thing. That suddenly the things that you thought you knew suddenly have ways of moving or doing, or powers that you didn't anticipate.
Mm.
And which basically shows you why some people want you to play checkers, even if you have chessmen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Very, 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 very astute point. You know, you can bring chess pieces to a checkerboard, and you can play checkers with them.
Mhm.
And that is in essence bending. That's what he's talking about here. Those who understand us enslave us. They take your chess pieces and say, well, we're going to play checkers with these, and these are the rules we'll allow you on our checkerboard. They enslave you because they say, well, we own the checkerboard, we own the board,
Well,
and
we make the rules. They want to make the rules, and
exactly,
even though the pieces that are in front of you have the potential of doing so much more,
exactly.
they say, no, we make the rules. Everybody's got to play this way,
Hmm.
and you can
And
only move this way.
you can only move this way. And there's a piece of the human spirit, which I think he's also speaking to here, that rebels against that, and it's part of our of the basic, free will that is at the heart of our incarnation here. We wish to be free. We wish to exercise our will in a free way, and to the extent that free will is constrained, you find an enslavement. You know, your ability to be understood is an interesting way of putting it. I would say it's more along the lines of those who, instead of wanting to have a relationship of equals, where we are both free will, our free wills are exercised in such a way that if we're going to do something where one affects the other, there's an agreement. Both enter into this relationship freely. But this is not an agreement relationship when you're talking about the understanding that's being talked about here is a master-slave kind of relationship. I understand what you can do for me, and I will allow you to do those things for me, and I will allow you to serve me. You know, this is understanding. You know, the poet is a quintessential expression of free will because the poet looks at things so differently.
Mhm.
You know, and then uses the medium, in this case, words, to express that which is almost unexpressible except through poetry. You know, the words are important, but the choice of the words, the way the words, the rhythm, the music of the words, the way they kind of beat against each other, the rhyme, the
The
scansion.
Yeah, the juxtaposition of concepts and what that triggers when you look at it, because you don't necessarily equate understanding with enslavement.
No.
And the mind goes, okay, what are we looking at then? How is this possible? And that understanding, the underlying connection in that is that there is an agreement to interact with one another and use concepts or words that both parties are agreeing to. So when you look at it that way, you can see that a lot of societies, this is how we function. We have agreed that we are all doing things a certain way because that's what we're supposed to do, designated by a society, let's say. And we function that way. But at the same time, you are constrained. As a human being, you are, say, the queen on the board. You can move any which way as long as you're not blocked. But they changed the rules so the queen can't move that way. She's got to move the way a pawn does.
Right.
And hence the enslavement.
Yes. I love that analogy, and it's also the other juxtaposition here. You mentioned juxtaposition of concepts. You know, when you talk about understanding, it has a positive connotation. You know, you're coming to an agreement, you're working things out. But enslavement has none of that. But yet, like a poet does, he sees the connection, the essential connection of these things, and where understanding is enslavement, where if your understanding is not between you and the other, but between you and, as you said, a society or a culture, you are constrained. Now, there's certainly benefits. There's a trade-off, but you have to enter into it with clear eyes. You have to see the trade-off. You say, well, okay, at this particular, under these conditions, these rules are constraining us. However, they make sense because if we allow complete unrestricted movement through the middle of this busy intersection, we might end up hurting each other or hurting ourselves. So maybe you can see where certain rules make sense. Certainly, even in a free will society, the rule of my life is my own. The rule of that which I have dedicated time and part of my life to, it acquires, it acquires a value that is intrinsically coming from me, from my life force. So there's the concept of ownership. Then there's the concept of, if you are going to try to remove my life from me, take my freedom away, take my property away, these things all very naturally fall into the idea of rules against that. So there's a certain Locke, I think, called it the natural law. These are some things, and you can look up Locke and go deeply into him. But in the natural law, you find
John Locke.
Yes.
Yes.
Why, is there another Locke?
No, I'm just qualifying.
Right. Sorry. But you can look him up and find these things, and there were a great deal of writing about it. But I'm not going to get into that. But you see, this is a beginning. But then you start to layer on top of it rules about power over, power under. You start to get third chakra stuff on top of that. Then you start to get culture, and then you start to get society, and then you start to get... And these layers built on top can become onerous. They can become not just an understanding, but truly chains. You've run into that too, in the sense of the culture shock.
Yes. And it all requires you to become very aware of who you actually are. Because as a small child, you may just take on whatever it is that's being presented to you, which is natural, all right? It's completely natural. But there are points when you, as a human being with a spirit and a soul, you must make decisions when you can and what you choose to participate in. So that feeling of, oh, gee, that's how they wanted to control someone, by laying out this particular hierarchy. And when you do it, whenever you do a hierarchy, someone is always on the bottom.
Exactly.
So everybody is squirming, trying not to be on the bottom. And you sit there and you go, but that's not real. We don't have to agree to that. It is a natural thing in a family that you're a small child. You got to listen to your parents because you're just little. You don't know how this all works. You can't feed yourself. You can't do a lot of things. But as you acquire maturity and skills and the ability to see and think and participate, you add more to the family. But at the same time, you begin to realize the structure that you're participating in, the structure of your particular family. So it's learning on so many different levels. You learn about yourself, your relationship to your family, your family's relationship to its immediate circle of friends, then the circle of work, and then the circle of school or learning or neighborhood.
Mm.
And then how does that play into a larger society within this neighborhood, within this town, within this city or county, within this state? If you begin to see that there are a myriad of different ways and different mechanics in a family. And I always remember that when the kids discovered that not every family functions the way we do.
Even years later, they would say, I went to my friend's house and it was weird.
They'll look at you like, wait a minute, is there something you're not telling me? And you're like, every family is different.
Right.
And they have their own way of doing things. So that's when you begin to see that they start taking it apart. I was like, wait a minute, how does this family function?
Well, to riff on that for a sec, the interesting thing is that as you become more mature and you realize these things, if there's fluidity in your society, or if there's a way for you to acquire the privileges of your maturity, you can see that this is a society which is in essence a structure built to grow upon, like a trellis. You start as a very young plant, let's say, and you need more support. But as you grow larger and stronger and more able to support yourself, the society becomes a framework. And then it also, if it's a society which is built in such a way as to give the maximum amount of freedom without everyone, killing themselves through craziness. And this is the balancing point, and a large portion of what was done, what Locke talked about, is about this balance point, and Montesquieu and a few others. But these balancing points, the balancing point of structure and control, if you will, versus freedom, and the ability to do whatever one wishes, it comes down to sort of the fluidity of the society. So, to the extent that your society is rigid and the hierarchy is rigid, so if you are born, a smith, you are always a smith, you will die a smith, You are constrained at the level you're born. It becomes a caste system, let's say, if you understand caste systems. So, in this type of society, the rigidity of it means that there is no or very little way for you to become anything other than the understanding that the society has of you. If you are born into this, you will always be this, regardless of who or what or how old or how much maturity or how brilliant you are. No, your toes are this shape or your knees are wobble that way, and you can't go past that. In other words, the society, the rules are not about furthering or nurturing freedom, in the way that is it has the ability to not have everyone. Let's say the rules of the natural law, which is you don't take from others and those sorts of things. Those are enforced very strongly, and then to the extent that natural law is not impinged upon, everything else becomes freer and freer as you, the individual, become more mature and and have more ability. And then to the extent of your ability and your let's say your talents, and they're always different, you can pursue your happiness, to coin a phrase. Pursue your own bliss within this framework. That works. The other, and we know of many societies like this, is all about the understanding, which whether or not you understand the understanding, you are understood and enslaved. So I think this word is very important, Margaret. It's not that you understand. That's not important, that you understand. It's that you are understood and stood upon in some regard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Well, again, somebody when you have a hierarchy, you've got to have somebody on the bottom.
Someone who's being stood upon.
Yes.
Stood under. You know?
Yeah. I understand you. So
right. And you say you are my footstool and you will never be anything other than these are the societies he's talking about. And the madness, the person who is the outcast, the reject,
the bottom.
The madman. No, well, the madman is not even at the bottom of the society. The madman is the reject of society. You're an outcast, and you buy your freedom through universal rejection of the rigid society. Because you look on these people and say, well, they're just beasts. They're not even human. You know, they'll do anything. They don't respect any of our rules. Of course, the real rules, the actual natural law rules, can be perfectly understood and respected by all. But once you get into the rigidity of the society rules, these vertical columns, which I know you have tons of experience with the vertical columns that don't touch, then you have to be understood. We understand you. Just get in your place, you know.
You have a place that you're supposed to fill. And they basically coin it in terms of a virtue, because if you're not there, then you weaken the whole thing.
Oh, could you explain? I mean, that is so coining it in terms of a virtue.
Yes, of course we need you. We need you to stand right there to buoy up everything else so it doesn't collapse.
But if you don't do it, don't you understand that you're hurting all of us?
Yes, you're making us weak if you don't stand there.
Do it for me because you love me.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting because as a human being, you look at that and you go, well, it's true, but at the same time, not, because this is a construct of someone else's making. It doesn't necessarily mean that there is truth to it. It's just true in terms of, well, yes, if you take out one part of the structure, you weaken it. You know, it's very obvious kind of analogy where you're playing with blocks. You take out the one here, and you know that's why Jenga is so popular, because you're taking out these little blocks and seeing if it falls yet. But to understand that you have got to look at the structure itself and say, is there value here overall? Am I being sacrificed because they deem it better? And who are they who are making these rules? It's, again, I'm playing chess, you want to play checkers.
I think, though, the Jenga, I'm reminded immediately of Niemann and the Tower of Babel and the fired bricks versus the hewn stone. What I'm talking about is that Niemann's tower, the Tower of Babel, was an analogy of this kind of society of cogs, of tiny bricks that you would pile one upon the other, upon the other, upon the other. And these bricks uniformly used to create this structure, which in the end was an analogy of turning people into interchangeable blocks, of which you can build something very high, but the blocks have they're understood. They aren't allowed to move at all. And the rejection of that was looking at people as stones, as individual rocks, all different shapes, sizes, and colors, which you can fit together if the rock is placed in the right spot, that it has the ability to in essence, lend to the structure but not lose its individuality.
You mean Nimrod?
Yes, I said Naaman. I meant Nimrod. Nimrod's a great name, isn't it? Who's Naaman? He's somebody else.
That's a different biblical story. He was a captain of the guard who had gotten leprosy.
Okay, well, Nimrod with the Tower
Nimrod.
of Babel. Thank you.
Okay, so it's turning the individuals of a society into uniform structures, hence the bricks. Because they're regular and they can be set in almost any way you want them to be. Whereas God was planning that each person is unique and there is a place for them. So that was really again, you're taking the pieces on the board and, all right, we're not doing chess, we're doing checkers. And I'm going to stack all these up the way I want them. And it's not appreciating the individual. It's just, well, no, you're human, so you have the ability to lift these bricks and stack them. So that's what your job is. Or you make the bricks, or you do the mortar, or you do the... And
when you crush somebody, let's say a person, into a box, you make the bricks, that's all you do. That's your box. You become a brick, in essence. You're just a laborer, and all you do is, you have no other value except that you can crush straw into bricks, or whatever the heck they're doing, clay and straw into bricks.
Yeah, I don't know what the process was, actually, to make brick. But it's understanding that each person has something to add and to allow the individuality. Otherwise, that is all you become, is a brick. And you basically can be replaced by somebody else easily, as opposed to being so unique that only you can hold that position. And that's the manipulation that's being done in a society, when you've always got to have somebody underneath to be the lackey. They're turned into bricks. They're not turned into good foundation stone.
Well, you know what, we've been talking so wonderfully about this, that I have become a Nimrod and gone past our bottom of the hour break. So let's take a bottom of the hour break, and we'll come back and talk more about madness.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, the Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Brag Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the Artist First Radio Network. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. Let's get back to our hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, Steve-Man. Tonight we're talking about madness. Actually, not really. We left off with Nimrod, which is always a great place to leave off. But I think, Margaret, your point about the bricks and society, rigid, inflexible societies which need hierarchy, need those bottom bricks. And you notice when the bottom bricks are abused and neglected and put upon so greatly, when they finally do break, it brings the society down in much the same way that the bottom bricks breaking of any building bring down the whole society, because the fallacy in these hierarchies is that these interchangeable bricks are that. But actually, each individual person, no matter how much you try to make them into a brick, is still a hewn stone. They still have tremendous capacity and a yearning for freedom. And when they feel that they are abused and neglected and put upon, there's a rebellion that rises up. It rises right from the heart true portion of that person, and it finds the heart true resonance in all those who are currently being trodden upon like bricks. And when they rise up, you have the French Revolution, where it's off with their heads. It becomes a bloody backlash, and it's we can see it throughout the historical record, where inflexible, tyrannical regimes are overthrown. Yes, and they lie to themselves in a demonic way, saying that this is the way we will be in power forever. We'll enslave them. We'll watch their every move. We'll make sure they're interchangeable bricks. But yet the human heart, that hewn stone of individuality, will not be forever denied or forever oppressed. It will rise up. because it is part of our basic nature.
Well, the human spirit is way different than comparing our being to stone or brick. You know, that's the spirit is vast. The soul is vast. The experience far outweighs all of it. To equate the human being as a brick means that you are made by a society, and you are given the dimensions on how you are made and what you're made out of.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's just not true. Each human being is made out of a different combination of different materials, and anyone who knows anything about materials understands that you may have a whole block of some kind of stone, a substance, but every stone is made differently. Different compositions, different trace minerals, different, just individual in and of themselves. You may think that it's the same, but it's not. Even if you just go and see the different types of flake there is out there. They break apart differently. Their strength depends on what other minerals happens to be in there, their color, whether or not you've got any kind of mica running through it gives you a shimmer. There's a whole granite, vast variety of types of granite. No stone is the same. Yet humans want to make things uniform because they want to be able to manipulate it. And it's not appreciating the individuality that is inherent in the substance of the foundation stone that's being made. Some stones are much better suited to be foundation stone, and others are made or would be much better as a roofing tile.
True. Well, I love to take away some of the things you just put there beautifully, because to understand, the limit of your understanding does not define the actual composition of the stone. It's the other way around. And if you want to understand, truly understand the other, you have to be so open to every nuance and realize that your understanding is imperfect. So that reflects well upon the person who wishes to understand the other. You see the other as this vast being, which in essence is unknowable in entirety. But you have the appreciation not only for yourself, your own vastness, but for the fact that the other is equally vast and equally uncomprehensible, ultimately ununderstandable. And to respect that is to give them their freedom. Say, well, I think I know you, but I'm willing to learn something new about you every moment of every day, because no one of us feels comfortable with being completely understood. You want to have a little freedom and madness in you. You want to always have something unique. And it's true, the vibrant, unique frequency of your spirit is exactly that. It is not comprehensible by any other. Your being is too vast for that. And to appreciate that in the other is to have an equality of relationship. To get just briefly back to Khalil's quote here, freedom and safety in my madness, those things together, you again, this poetic combination of words. Madness is not something which people espouse to. You don't want to be a mad person. But yet, he says, it's freedom and safety. You're an invulnerable, inviolate being when you are in this condition, because you realize that your vastness can never be comprehended entirely. You yourself, your egoic self, can never comprehend the vastness of your being. And someone else's egoic self has no chance. Your madness is that which makes you uniquely you. And its basic benefit is both freedom and safety, because no matter what any despot tries to do with you, as they say, you can't take away my freedom. You can do anything you want to me, but I will still in my heart be free. It's Alexander Solzhenitsyn. It didn't matter how many gulags of gulags they could have put him in. It didn't matter. He was free in his mind, and therefore he could never be enslaved.
To understand that the freedom and the safety in the madness is understanding at your core you are a mystery.
Yes.
So acknowledging the mystery that abides in you. And he obviously is abiding in it, that core part of himself. And to someone else it appears as madness because it's not understood. Madness means that it's outside the bounds of reasonability. And to be comfortable in your own mystery is turned into being, you're comfortable in your own madness. Different viewpoints, different understanding. It's the people who are using the bricks and saying, wait a minute, you're not a brick. We can't have you.
It's paint by numbers or the madness of creativity. When you meet a truly creative soul, an Einstein, a Tesla, whomever, and they frighten you because they could do anything. Their madness is to go beyond and say, I don't know, but I'm going to risk everything and try to channel this amazing vastness into something that can be expressed in a medium, whatever that medium is, and however imperfectly. But yet you sense this newness, this raw creative power, the Word made flesh, if you will, the raw creative power, which comes in through madness, Yes, it's mystery and it's madness.
It's understanding that who is feeling this is the little self. Madness is not part of your spirit or soul. It has the appearance of it to someone on the outside who sees you functioning outside a certain boundary limit that they understand. All
right, outside their understoodness there. But I like what you said before, the egoic I, the little I, even in your own self, doesn't understand the vastness of your being and the madness. But if you opening yourself to grace, going beyond the egoic, and just throwing it open there, is opening yourself to, in essence, this channel of freedom, safety, madness, mystery, that the egoic self doesn't have any clue. When you're sitting there with an egoic problem, it can never, I don't know what to do, and it's so terrible, and I'll never get out of it, and I'm crushed beyond, I'm now a brick crushed under other brick. No, that's just the little I. And when you open yourself to the little I screams, no, it's madness, we'll never get out of this. You just put it all to the side. Nope. And you fall into or expand into the mystery.
Well, if we take the analogy we've been using, who you actually are in this physical form can be looked upon as a unique stone. But your ego is the brick.
Your ego is a brick. not P. It's a brick.
Oh
Okay.
dear.
But your ego wants to be a brick.
Mm.
You know, it wants to fit in.
It wants to fit in, yes.
It wants to find other bricks that it can put bricks upon. It wants to quantify, measure, put it in boxes. Box. I've got boxes for my boxes. It loves bricks.
Of course it does. It's what is the phrase he used in this? For those who understand us, enslave something in us. In other words, that concept of being understood is actually a handle someone puts on you where you can be manipulated in some way easily.
An egoic handle on your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't Nimrod really indulging in an egoic quest? The whole idea of the Tower of Babel was to build a tower to God. And of course, it's poetic language, but in essence, it's an egoic quest to make the ego as great as the spirit, or as great as the vastness, as great as the being. And of course, it can never be, but that's the egoic. If we get enough bricks together, we'll get there.
I wonder sometimes if he had used stone instead of brick, what would have come of that? Because all stone has its own limitations. It's a life lesson in essence, understanding how to rule a people. He was not ruling a people in terms of them being individual beings, humans. He was looking at them as, okay, we'll just manipulate you a certain way, trying to make you do this or that or the other thing, and not even taking into account that no one really wants to be curtailed that way. He wouldn't want it, but because he's in charge, he says, oh, it's okay because I'm in charge.
Right.
We'll just do it this way. It's more efficient. It's like, no. You're crossing the boundary here. Do you see the boundary that you're crossing at all? And that's an interesting question.
It is. I mean, when people say that, I know best and I can tell you what to do, we always some part of you rebels at that. So, well, who are you in essence? Who made you king? And if we allow this king or this ruled over power under, we end up with making ourselves bricks and being told what to do. And while there's safety in being a brick, I never have to worry about it. And no, you're still no more than a cog in a machine, an ant in an anthill, a stratified society of which you are no more than an interchangeable, replaceable, insignificant portion. And the ones who are the vast lords above, it's a hierarchy in of which you are no longer, in their understanding, human or equal in any way, shape, or form. Your uniqueness, your madness, has been squeezed out of you. Of course, it can never be separated from you. But that's what they would like. This idea that I can tell you what to do because I'm in charge. It'll be good. And you can all be bricks, and we'll just pile you up one to the other. And who cares how high? You're the middle brick, number 47. You don't care.
Right. It's kind of it's taking the respect out of the person, and you're making them into objects.
Exactly.
That have no bearing on anything except what you deem is important. Again, we're changing it to checkers.
Yeah.
And people don't need to agree to this because it's a two-way street. You have to agree to become a brick.
Exactly. you enslave yourself in some ways. All despots require the consent of those who are despised. Doesn't make sense, but it kind of works. If you are part of a hierarchical, stratified society, in some ways you have made yourself into the brick, because the only way you can actually force somebody to do something is by truly physical force. If they refuse to do it, you have to threaten them with their lives. Now, if you take it to that level, losing your life for your freedom, people have done it through many years and many times. Liberty or death, right? That sentiment. But if you are frightened enough and you consent, even under duress, you become a brick. And part of you rebels. Part of you is wounded at a heart level when you agree, in essence, to subjugate yourself, to become a cog, a pawn, a checker, whatever it may be.
Right, and that is part of you that is enslaved, but you have the ability for ultimate freedom. And on that note, we have to end our show.
Madness!
Shall come join us in the mystery that life is. I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.